speaking of George MacIntyre, not a tough background. He goes to a private school in the mid-state area in Nashville there. And supposedly he's telling other recruits that nothing's going to happen with the NIL investigation. If you're another recruit, are you taking George MacIntyre, who committed to Tennessee as part of the 2025 class at quarterback, a 5-star quarterback? Are you taking what he tells you to heart? Or are you kind of like, you may have a vested interest?
Well, Tennessee, he says that Tennessee is telling him that nothing's going to happen. And then he says the coaching staff has explained what's going on and that UT coaches have advised the family not to worry. So they've gone like out of their way to talk to George MacIntyre more than they've talked to other people.
Okay, but time out. What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to say, oh, this whole Tennessee thing may not work out. We don't even know if we'll be a school in 2 years.
Well, that's where I met with this, because this is not the first time I have heard an administration assure people things will work out and they don't work out. I distinctly remember when Quanzo Martin was hired at Tennessee, or when Derek Dooley was hired at Tennessee, and, you know, Mike Hamilton had just assured them there would be no issues from the previous recruiting scandals whatsoever. You remember that, Dave? When he just assured them everything would work out. And then they were both like, you know, they assured me, Mike assured me everything would work out. So, you know, of course he's going to tell you everything's going to work out. So I think what they're doing, and this is what I think is happening. I think the way this is different is I don't think the administration is just giving recruits their word that things are going to work out. I think they're giving them evidence that it's going to work out. And that's where I think they're legitimately presenting recruits and their families with evidence that they're going to win. And that's why they shouldn't worry.
You know what you're in right now if you're the University of Tennessee? You're in a battle that the lottery odds are flipped. You've got like a 331 million chance to win, okay? But if you lose, you get shot in the kneecap. I mean, they are probably going to win. But having the NCAA poking around just for funsies is not grand. Would you agree with that?
Yes, it's like this. And I will tell you, I am not one of them. Do not accuse me of being one of them. But I know some professional sports gamblers. And one of their methods of sports gambling, Dave, that's intriguing, they take one game every like Saturday in football where it is so they just bet money line, and they bet money line on the heavy favorite. So the payout's small, but it's so like Alabama playing Louisiana Monroe, okay? And they put like $5,000 on Alabama. So they put so much that they'll win something back. They do that every week. Now, that's okay, but if an upset happens, you're screwed because you're just out of a lot of money. And so
let me ask you and the message board, if I place 3 separate bets on the NBA All-Star game, does that say that I have a problem?
I would never have bet on that game. You never know how those games are going to play out. Nobody cares about that game.
I know.
I would say that you don't know how to gamble because you're betting on an All-Star game.
1, 2, or 3. 2 or 3.
You were lucky. You were lucky.
I know. 15% off your first order. You can call Tyler at 865-919 for 3001. 865-919-3001. Best promo products, screen printings, giveaways, or uniforms for your business. Go to yourapexapparel.com, yourapexapparel.com, or just call Tyler at 865-919-3001, 865-919-3001. And also, just your thoughts in general of George MacIntyre. Do you want him he's entering his junior year? Is that correct? Do we have my years right?
No, he is in his junior year. He will be a senior in 2020.
Okay. Do you want a junior in high school representing your NIL stance to other prospects? Because what if there is one prospect that you've got to give a little cash to? Do you want George MacIntyre saying that nothing's going to happen and everything's fine? NIL seems to be all taken care of. Remember this too. George goes to a very nice school and he seems like a little bit upper crust. if he tells that to somebody else, I didn't need any money to go. Well, maybe that person did need money to go. Is George MacIntyre the guy that you want leading your PR campaign on NIL? Is all I'll ask you.
See, I didn't think this was about George MacIntyre. He wouldn't be, no, but I think this is about how Tennessee is recruiting amidst the NIL investigation, what they told George MacIntyre. Dave, I think, and this is going to be my crazy take. You can say if it's the Caleb crazy take of the day. I think Tennessee
got to get a sponsor to that.
I think Tennessee is using the NCAA investigation as an asset on the recruiting trail.
Oh, now you're getting interesting. How can they do that? Is that another segment, or is that we rolling with this?
I say we kind of roll with this too, because it was like, how are they recruiting amidst NIL? My philosophy is that typically in the past, if you were under an NCAA investigation, you had to fight that off when recruiting, right? That wasn't negative. You had to fight off, right? You had to minimize. Right, Dave?
Yes.
Dave, are you listening to me?
Yes, I'm listening to you. I'm thinking.
Okay. When Tennessee recruits now, they are literally saying, guys, we're going to win this case, and we are the trendsetters in fighting for athletes' rights to get paid. You want to come play for us. Because while other states and other schools are going to whine about it, we're going to be the ones up front saying we're here to protect our players and what's best for them. And
okay, that's another column I was thinking about writing, because if I'm Tennessee, I'm preaching from the mountaintops that I am your incredible what's the word I'm looking for? Brainiac, brainstormer. I am your NIL god, so to speak. I am Tennessee or Virginia. I don't know how Virginia got in there, but I'm Virginia. If North Shore was still in business, that would have been a good sponsor for the Crazy Caleb segment. I thought about that the other day. Crazy Caleb, brought to you by North Shore. Middle institution. Are you familiar with what North Shore is, Caleb?
No.
It's a jogging track where crazy people could run out on you at any point. But Caleb, let's get back to how this might be. It may actually help Tennessee. Should they champion themselves that way?
Yes, they should champion themselves being investigated, and they should champion the lawsuit with it. And they should say, look, we'll fight for you so hard. We don't care if the NCAA comes for us. We will fight your case in front of the NCAA to make sure you get paid. I think they're telling recruits that all over the country right now. And if they're not, they should. And it's the first time I've ever said that a school should use an investigation to its advantage. Because they could be like, look what we're being investigated for. We're not being investigated and hiding it. We're being investigated and being open about it and saying, you know what? We're not doing anything wrong. And we're going to keep paying players. I think they should absolutely own it.
Okay. Let me take you a step further, because I'm still in it from Fallout Zone on the line. And yes, it was Lakeshore, not North Shore. Fallout Zone says, we're in the social media age. You want this type of message spread to recruits. If Deion Sanders was doing this at Colorado, could we possibly even get away from the messaging?
No, everybody would be touting him.
It would be basically impossible. Like my son, who's not a big college football fan, would bring it up. My daughter would bring it up.
Well, here's the thing. Deion Sanders said something last year that other coaches, had they said it, they'd be seen as hating players, because Deion Sanders actually said he has a problem with collectives. And you could maybe
collectives are a group, a bunch of dudes that are trying to take money. By the way, Moondrop Beauty's loving you. Yes, Caleb, he is so spot on right now. You're throwing heat.
I mean, I'm just, sometimes my crazy takes are just crazy enough to be genius.
I love it. You're on it. Hit the like button.
And here's the
hit the subscribe button. That's all I was going to say. Hit like and subscribe. Yeah, I like this. And it has the feel we're hearing of a Johnny Depp Amber Heard. That would make Caleb Amber Heard. That would make me Johnny Depp. But yeah, I could see going.
Wait, what? What? Where does that come out of? How am I Amber Heard?
Why doesn't Tennessee just go all in? They're practically all in anyway. Why don't they just go in and Tennessee says, this is about us, kids. And this is about us winning and you getting dominated and you going away. Robert says the smartest thing Tennessee could do is to hire all the football players as employees, give them all salaries and benefits, including free education and health care. We don't need the NCAA. I'm with you on that, but I think that more than just Tennessee would have to be on board. Caleb, I think
Yeah,
you'd
see,
have
the
to
problem
have
with that.
unionized players across the board.
Yeah, and Robert, the problem with that is the minute the university started paying them, they would have to pay every other athlete the same amount of money because the university is sanctioning the sport. So they legally wouldn't able to do that. I would say that, look, this is, and by the way, what is this happening against, Dave? If Tennessee owns this in recruiting, it happens against the backdrop of Tommy Tuberville trying to stop and limit NIL money, isn't it? And
Yes.
And think about that. Alabama senator, at the behest of the Alabama schools, is limiting the NIL power that players can have and advocating for that. And Tennessee is openly embracing an investigation for paying its players.
Hey, can I ask everybody on the message board a second? No, the NCAA is Amber Heard. Thank you, Moondrop Beauty. I think I do a pretty good job of responding to questions on here. And I would just, I guess I'm feeling vulnerable and would just like to throw this out there that I responded to all these questions about Cooper Mays in the most recent video we had on him and how the person said it doesn't help everybody. It just helps the superstars. That's not true. Everybody at the University of Tennessee or a school of that ilk gets something from the collective, which in this case is Spire. I was very disappointed at that. And then he left me with this, Caleb, and this was hurtful. Little man with deep pockets. First of all, I'm fat and don't have a lot of money.
Oh my gosh.
So that's where that went. But Caleb, that to me was a bizarre take. Now, I'm sure that getting back to the MacIntyre thing, he's promised X amount, right? May just be $50,000 a year to be comfortable. But is Tennessee past the point of having to give out the $2 million a year? I think they are. I don't think they're ever going to have to face a situation where they sit down and they have to pay 7 digits for a quarterback or a player for that matter ever again.
No. And also, I mean, this is one thing that won't sound as pro player, but it's true. The truth of the matter is the name brand of the college is more valuable than the player wearing the jersey for the big schools. It is.
Especially in football, less FaceTime.
Yeah, exactly. Especially in football. That's actually a very good point because, when Allen Houston was at Tennessee, he may have been more valuable than the basketball program itself. Looking back, or Bernard King may have been more valuable than the basketball program itself. But
that's a great point.
No football player is ever more valuable than the Tennessee football program. There is not a player in the world they could get that would be more valuable than the program. Is that fair to say?
I don't think I think that's why it's so stupid that we attach Super Bowl wins to quarterbacks. I think football is the ultimate team game. I don't think there is a position where you deserve to have Super Bowl strapped next to it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's like wins for a pitcher. That's such a stupid stat. Wins for a pitcher in baseball. Yeah. It's the dumbest stat in the history of sports. Yeah, I think that basketball is the one sport where a player can be more valuable than the franchise. Any team that drafted Michael Jordan was going to win a lot of championships because Michael Jordan was more valuable than
Well, I do think there's something to being faced with a right, not to get sued, too sidetracked. Maybe this is another segment altogether. I think there's something, Michael Jordan got challenged because he didn't grow 6 inches in time to be a starter, right? Or to make his team. That's why he didn't just come back. Hey, look at my new ball skills. No, I'm 6 foot, right. 6 inches taller. Maybe Nico is facing the perfect scenario to make him better. And that's sitting a year behind Joe Milton when he thinks, he's not told me this, but I think he is he's pretty darn sure of his skills and he thought he was better than Joe Milton.
That's possible. And he really could think he was better than Joe Milton. And
so maybe you learn. Tough times make us learn.
Well, it's funny because, one of the things you bring up, I maintain for the longest time that had Scottie Pippen stayed healthy, the Bulls would have beaten the Pistons a year before. Remember when Scottie had the migraine?
Yes.
And they lost in games. Okay, if Scottie doesn't have the migraine, I think the Bulls win it all that year. But does winning it all that year hurt them? Because I think losing that year made them train so much extra harder in the off season that they became so dominant right after that. And so you actually make a good point. Maybe losing the job to Milton, even though he was better, like kicked him into gear to work so hard that he was going to be even better than he even needed to be.
Yep. Great comment by Moon Drop Beauty, and that's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. Don't trust a fly-by-night HVAC company to tell you that you need a new unit that could cost you thousands or more. cityheatandair.com, cityheatandair.com. George MacIntyre, according to Moon Drops Beauty, is beloved by a ton of these recruits, and I think him telling them everything will turn out fine really carries a lot of weight with these recruits. You know, when it's all said and done, he could have a much bigger impact on recruiting than Nico, who had to think about volleyball and went to an awful lot of camps. And I don't have a problem with that, but I don't think it's your responsibility to be an overly active recruiter. If you're a quarterback, Caleb, I think that's part of it. That goes with that goes with the job. But as for the most part, I don't expect a guy to pick up the phone and recruit for the school he picked.
Here's why I think Nico would be a better recruiter than George MacIntyre. George MacIntyre is clearly someone who was like born and birthed and raised a Tennessee fan. Is that fair to say?
Yes, most likely, yes.
Okay. He can only recruit for Tennessee from the perspective of someone who was always a Tennessee fan. Nico can recruit from the perspective of someone who you need to sell Tennessee to somebody who may not have been interested. Something I've noticed about Tennessee, Dave, dealing with former players since I've been around, it's almost like people talk about, you notice how like a lot of times like immigrants love America more than Americans do because they know where they came from.
Yes.
It's a lot of times like people from other states that come play football at Tennessee love Tennessee more than people who grew up in Tennessee did because they know that they had no expectation of it being that great. You know what I'm talking about? And so I noticed a lot of people from like California that came to Tennessee to play love Tennessee more than Tennesseans do.
Yes, I mean, I could definitely see that. So he wins people over for the passion to play. He doesn't have to win over people with NIL anymore. I think that's the progression. Is that what you're referring to? Because that's what we've talked about, how NIL will settle.
Yes, because George MacIntyre is going to only win. Like George MacIntyre can only speak from the perspective of a Tennessee fan. Okay, it's hard to sell a school you always loved. It's hard to sell anything you always loved. It's actually easier to sell something if you didn't love it and then you learn to love it.
I can roll with that. No, I can roll with that. Now, so what has a greater emphasis? Is it Andy Kelly playing for the hometown school and having a very stellar career? Or is it Peyton Manning coming from a place like Louisiana? What has the bigger emphasis on recruiting and getting one over and loving the school?
Not even close. Not even close. It's Peyton Manning.
It's Peyton? Okay.
It's Peyton Manning by 1,000 miles. It's Peyton Manning.